Baldur's Gate 3 is an expansive, incredible RPG with hundreds of hours of content and potential. It's also a game that had its bumps and bruises along the way with some very interesting stories as a result, both pre-launch and post. Let's dive into some of the craziest Baldur's Gate 3 stories you may not have heard of. And let me know down below if at least one of these 5 you didn't know of. Let's start with one of the coolest ones to me.
I say hiss!
His Majesty, perhaps the greatest cat in all of Baldur's Gate 3, was actually bugged at first. Believe it or not, the sleek hairless design was not meant to apply to His Majesty, but rather another fierce feline in the same vicinity, Steelclaw.
Claw, furless one. Tread lightly. Fortunately for you, the slithering vermin I hunt has my attention. For now.
His Majesty wasn't meant to be hairless, but rather have a majestical flow of fur. So they added back enough hair for the Harpers to be cleaning up hairballs all day. The reaction to them adding back that hair to His Majesty, well, wasn't great.
I say hiss!
People rioted and demanded they shave the cat. People rioted and demanded they shave that damn cat. So they took all the hair away. They shaved His Majesty, and everyone rejoiced.
And there was much rejoicing.
His Majesty had returned to his glory as one of the fierce hairless felines of Faerun. Oh, and one more thing about His Majesty. His Majesty was actually voiced by the same actor who voiced Withers. I wonder if they did mocap for His Majesty.
And my other character is His Majesty, which I went in one morning. They said, "Oh, by the way, we've got another character for you." I said, "Oh, okay. Could you just do as a cat?" I said, "Well, yeah." So I did a cat. And I sort of went like this and talked, in a very cat-like way. And then there was a word that said hiss, and I went hiss. And apparently it's become a byword now in Baldur's Gate.
Hiss! I say hiss! And yet you harm me by your very presence. This is my territory, and you're in it.
The cat is fantastic. He's so slim and with that sort of silky coat. And no, I mean, it really was a morning. I just did it off the top of my head.
Damn.
Now, the second one I think has gotten enough play that some of you probably may have already seen this, but it's also perhaps one of the most interesting ones that we have. Starion, well, they used to be a bit different.
This is going to surprise quite a few people today, especially fans of Starion, because...
Well, I can understand your curiosity. Alas, there isn't much to tell. I'm just a simple tiefling. A simple tiefling infected with a brain parasite to help heal his imperfections, certainly, but still a simple tiefling.
Yes, he was a tiefling originally. So things have changed since then.
Would you have romanced Starion if he'd been a tiefling instead of a high elf? It's a question many fans of the game were asking after Sven Vinka revealed earlier in 2024 at a GDC panel that Starion was originally going to be a tiefling, even going as far as to show some of that footage of the tiefling that Neil Newbin had actually recorded for. Starion with dark black hair and glowing yellow eyes. What do you think? Is Starion better as a wise-cracking high elf, or would they have been good as a dark-haired, yellow-eyed tiefling?
I'm flattered, but I think not. It's not you understand. It's me. I have standards.
Honestly, the high elf just feels right. It feels like what was supposed to be. But that could in part be because that is what we got. We got to see Neil Newbon's fantastic performance as Astarion, as that high elf. So I don't know, but you know what? With official mod tools out now, you can probably get Tiefling Astarion if you really want to. I'm actually surprised that we haven't had that come in yet. But honestly, I think I'll stick with Halfling Astarion.
I've already apologized. What more do you want? Unless you're looking for another nibble. My sweet, there is nothing I'd like more. I'll come to you tonight, when you're snugly wrapped in your bedroll, and we can have a little privacy. And this time, I'll make sure I'm quiet. We don't want to disturb your rest. But I will taste you, savor you, just enough to give me strength, and just enough to leave you wanting more.
Speaking of romance, though, did you know that the companions at launch were just a bit too thirsty?
I have a confession. I was too hasty to judge you. I thought you witless, gutless, unimpressively bland.
Baldur's Gate 3, when it launched, quickly gained the reputation for being, well, too horny. Companions would just throw themselves at you, and a burgeoning meta of speedruns for how quickly you could get to certain cutscenes developed with some absolutely insane times. But the problem is, that wasn't actually intended by Larian. According to Sven Vinka in some interviews with various outlets, the thresholds for character relationships were set too low. As Vinka said, it wasn't supposed to be that way, especially Gale. We fixed it since, at least for some of them. So while Gale and Lae'zel may be a bit thirsty, they weren't supposed to be that thirsty.
Well, well, look what the Tressim dragged in.
Further patches also put an end to the ridiculous fast speedruns for Lae'zel, which were lamented by May over on Speedrun with a comment on the post-patch 4. Going forward, run submissions should be submitted in the proper subcategory, depending on your game version. Pre-patch 4 runs will require down-patching your game, instructions for which can be found online. Difficult as these times may be, we will persevere. Sex will live on. So yeah, they really weren't supposed to be that into you when the game launched. Just a little bit less. Another issue that cropped up after launch is a curious one. Basically, you stole so much shit that Baldur's Gate 3 slowed down for you. Shortly after the launch of Baldur's Gate 3, they launched patch 3, which led to a new issue. Players started to get some performance issues, some lag. It began to cascade and get worse, and we found out why with patch 4. The reason was a bit unexpected. According to Larian, it's because we're all such terrible criminals and thieves. You see, what would happen is the game would be keeping track of your actions. The game simply wouldn't forget about all your dastardly acts of vandalism and theft. It was keeping track of so much that it eventually bogged down and clogged up with all those seen and unseen criminal acts. Thankfully, this was something they were able to fix with patch 5, remedying the lag and memory issues and allowing you to steal and vandalize to your heart's content. Except for the vendors, they're still trying to find a way to fix, because that's damn near a cheat code at this point. Now, our fifth and final one you may already know as well, but it's because it's been talked about quite a bit, especially lately. But it was really interesting getting to hear about it directly most recently at the Baldur's Gate 3 actor panel at DragonCon. Will's actor, Theo Solomon, originally voiced Bernard, the lachrymose robot rousing about the rubble in Act 2.
For just a moment.
His arms are too tight and too low for a comfortable hug, as if he's meant to be embracing someone slightly shorter.
Remember, you are loved little so much. You're doing great. And everyone will be so proud of you. As I already am.
He then went on to take over acting for Will after rewrites for the character moving to the forefront. Given the masterful performance Theo put forth for Will, I think we got rather lucky that he also lent his talents to one of the sadder stories in BG3 as well with Bernard. Although honestly, damn, everything he did is kind of sad, isn't it? Just, he needs, that's, oh, just so much sadness in this game.
The one little question that put me out of house and home. I can't utter the terms or circumstances of the pact. I can tell you most all else, but the pact, I'm forbidden, unless Mizora permits it. But I'll say this. The moment I pacted myself to Mizora, I have not regretted for a heartbeat. It was my proudest deed. It was worth the sacrifice. All I can give you on that is my solemn word.
Okay, so I said 5, but how about a bonus? How about one more? This one is more about what we gained and less about what we lost, but it is about something that never made it into the full game. It has been confirmed a few times by different actors and Larian themselves that originally there was a plan to have characters narrate themselves. So for example, Neil Newbin would have narrated Starion. They even recorded some of those lines. It was something the actors talked about at that same DragonCon panel, and they all agreed that in the end it was by far the best thing that it was scrapped, because it got us more of the incredible narration of Amelia Tyler, who among a string of incredible performances that made up Baldur's Gate 3 stands out for her authority.
Dear writers, please help. How say word? The pronunciation guide has forsaken us. Fair as in bus fare, fares rest. Lathander rhymes with Amanda. Eel as in eels, and estray as in that word. And yes, that's what we need, a third pronunciation.
One thing I didn't include in this list is any of the Easter eggs that you can see in Baldur's Gate 3, and some of them are really cool, but you can find out more of those here if you want to check them out. My name is Trevor Flynn, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, or evening, or night. Whenever you're watching this, I hope you have a good time zone.